Hello, hi, it's good to see you. I'm Addie from Whimsy of Things, and welcome to the first installment of a series I'm going to be calling Reinking, and in this case, September. I will be covering aspects of my fountain pen life from the previous month. I will cover anything new that I've bought. I'll cover anything that I've gotten rid of or sold. I'll talk about my budget a little bit. I'll go over the pits and the hits, or my dislikes and likes from the previous month. And I also want to do my review of my pen and ink combinations from my previous currently inked video here instead of combining them together. I think that will be a better video because we can just talk about the past and then talk about the present and the future. They'll be separated, and it'll give me a little bit more time to do more in-depth reviews of the pen and ink combinations without feeling like I'm making the video terribly long. Fair warning, some of the pits for September are a little emotional. So feel free to jump around using the timestamps if you want to skip over some of that. I'm excited to talk about September, so let's get started. I want to go over everything that I've purchased: fountain pens, planners, papers, stationery, all of that. Everything that I've purchased or anything new that I've gotten in. So the stack right here is the things that I acquired in September. And this is a relatively low amount of things. This month I've been keeping it kind of easy because I did spend a decent amount of money on a pen last month, and I have a very specific fountain pen budget that I have set up. It applies to all hobbies. This is everything new that came in. Let's just go through some of this stuff, and I'll tell you why I bought the things that I got. Some of them were gifts because my birthday was last month. So I'm going to start out with these books. So there was a little bit of drama in the fountain pen world in September from some places. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in my hits and pits section. But I had done a video about gray inks. And as I was finishing the video, I realized that out of all of the inks that I featured during that video, there was only one ink that was controversy-free, relatively speaking, out of all of them, and that the rest had all recently had some sort of thing come up about customer service or about price changes that weren't communicated well, a whole bunch of things. And I got sad and I kind of got frustrated, and I was like, I swear that's it. I'm just going to buy vintage pens from now on and everything off the secondhand market. And that way I know I am not, if I am supporting somebody with ethics that don't align with mine, it's a single solitary person, it's not a whole company. I just went off the deep end with that a little bit. During the course of this rebellion in my brain, I came across these two books. They're both secondhand market books, but they're fun. This one obviously was a library book at one point in time. It goes over different fountain pens. Some are not made anymore. It talks about Lamy, and it has some more modern pens in here because the copyright, I think, is in the 97. So it talks about how pens started, the filling mechanisms to begin with, and it's kind of funny because it's got a resource directory in the back of stores, where to buy fountain pens. I'm sure, I kind of glanced through here. Obviously, I don't know any of the ones that are overseas, but the United States ones, there's a few that I know the Fountain Pen Hospital is still around, this one. But a lot of the major ones that we know about are not in here. I'm kind of surprised that Atlas isn't in here because I thought they had been around for quite a while. It's kind of funny. This is where we used to get information before the internet. This is how we had to. It's actually got people's names in here for societies. And look, at CompuServe.com. That's fun, right? Anyway, it's a fun little book. There's some good images. Some of the information is quite outdated, but it's interesting. This one is similar. I like it a little bit better, though, because, well, it's a little bit bigger. This is where I got the books from. Better World Books. Really good prices. Both of these books together shipped were, I think, $17, which I think is great. The reason I really like this book is that it's got a ton of ads, these old ads for pens, all throughout the book. There's just a bunch of ads. And those, I just love those old advertising. I've always really liked old advertising. And it's got just almost every other page has, of course I'm flipping where there's not ads in different magazines and stuff. Try not to hit my plant and keep you in frame. This one also, well, the other one talked about history and that kind of thing. This one actually has some information on pen repair and what kind of pen to use, different inks and that sort of thing. And it's obviously not as extensive as you can find online right now, but it is actually not bad, decent information. Goes through the different parts of a pen and the different types. If you want to collect, it talks about collecting with a purpose and having a direction to go in. This is an order form for Parker. And then it talks about where to find them, obviously. The internet, the newest avenue available to the collector, is the personal home computer, which creates access to both new and vintage fountain pens from collectors and dealers around the world. Chat rooms, estate sales, gun shows. Talks about different ways for storage. This is a picture of the Fountain Pen Hospital. Pen clubs. But this section is pretty decent. It shows different tools to use if you're repairing vintage fountain pens. It gives you some information about sack replacement and removing sections. Again, obviously, much more information online, but nice to have. It talks about ethics of changing nibs on vintage pens and when that might not be great to do. Just these ads. I love these ads. Fresh ink, writing letters, different types of paper, values. And then it gets into the different manufacturers. It is fairly extensive with the different types of pens. Lots of pictures, so many pictures. Anyway, this has been a fun book. The values, I'm quite sure, are very inaccurate at this point in time. I like books. I like both these books. I like this one a little bit better, but this one is still nice. Even if it didn't have any other information in there, I love all these ads in one place. So about 1750, 1780 shipped fountain pen books count for fountain pen supplies. Then, as I said, I was feeling the vintage and secondhand market pen. So I have not done any sort of pen restoration. I've done some repairs, but nothing major, taking a piston apart and putting it back together. This little pen I got off of eBay and shipped. It was about $20. And honestly, that was maybe a little bit much because this is a wearever pen. They're the inexpensive vintage type pens, but I really liked the red line on here. I think that's really interesting. The size reminds me a lot of my Lucky Curve Parker, which is my other vintage pen. This one, it was restored though. This one is not, but it's a similar little pocket pen size. It's not a ring top like the Lucky Curve is, but I noticed in the listing, of course it said it wasn't restored at all, that the body of the pen seemed like it was in good shape. I don't see a lot of scratches or deep gouges. There isn't any personalization. The lever, the metal obviously has some tarnishing. I love the font that this is written in. I just really like that Art Deco-y type font. And like I said, I like the red. I thought that was unique. And then in the picture, I also noticed that the nib itself, okay, it's not 14 karat, which is kind of a bummer, but the tipping material was there. It seemed like it was in good condition. And it also seemed like the nib itself wasn't splayed or bent. The nib itself seems like it's in pretty good shape. The sack on the inside, this isn't even screwed in. This is just like a friction fit. Is obviously completely, it was shards. So I need to learn how to do it. But I thought, what the heck, for $20 shipped, again, that might have even been paying too much. I don't know. It's something I can experiment with. If nothing else, it looks kind of cool. And the Lucky Curve pen that I have does take a sack. So I would like to experiment on this pen with replacing it before I have to do it on that pen. Yeah, that's it. I did dip test it and it seemed like it wrote pretty well. We could even do that now. A little scratchy. That'll be a project somewhere down the road. So we're at about $37 that I spent last month. I did get an ink flight. Ink flight cost me with shipping right around $40. I think it's $37.99. And I do count that in my hobby budget because it is money that I spend on my hobby, one of my hobbies. But I'm not going to show you that because spoilers, and I don't want to do a whole reveal box for it. But suffice it to say, we add the ink flight in there, that's another $40. And then, as I mentioned, it was my birthday last month. That's part of the reason why I ended up with a rather expensive pen. It was sort of a birthday present to myself and a celebration of a somewhat decent annual review raise type deal. But for my birthday from my family, I got these 3 bottles of ink and this pen case, which is the same color as this little 6-slot pen case, but this one is a 12. I have it partially full. It's the kind that has the tray that slides out. I like that quite a bit. And it's got crumbs on it. I don't think it's leather, though they sprayed it with something that smells like leather. It's going to get pretty jacked up looking, just even sitting on my desk, but that's okay. So this 12-slot pen case that matches the other one I got. And then these 3 bottles of ink. I got Diamine Celadon Cat. I have put this in a pen. I do like the color quite a bit, so I am glad to get this. Then the Diamine Happy Holidays Shimmer Ink in the fun bottle. What does that have ink on it? It was in my drawer. And I have not tried this yet. It is a shimmer. I'll try to get it in my pens this month because I'd like to see it. I have a bottle of it now, so that's the second bottle of ink. And then this one, I'm not sure what my husband was thinking with this. It's a Hungdian coral. It's a very left field color for him to buy for me. He traditionally has gone with blues. He likes to buy me shimmer inks because they are fun. And this coral ink is pretty left field for him, but I am excited to try it. I haven't tried any Hungdian inks, so it'll be interesting to see. So these 3 bottles of ink, tried this one. I've not tried these 2 at all. And then last, and very out of character for me, I bought some ephemera. So I tend to, this is from Michaels. I tend to hit up Michaels around Halloween because I have a thing for anatomical heart drawings and ravens. And that is when that type of imagery seems to show up there a good bit. And these, of course, were 50% off. So the 2 packs of these were around $6. And they do have my anatomical heart and this raven I like quite a bit. I also like this little, let's open it. I'm a very functional planner. I don't decorate my planner, but I do like to put some imagery on the dashboards in between different categories. So let's just open this up. These are die cuts. So they're not stickers, they're just die cuts. Very out of character for me to buy this kind of stuff. But like I said, it is primarily because Halloween is when they have this kind of thing there. For example, in my planner last year, they had this X-ray looking heart that I like quite a bit. And so that came from there. And not really a holographic thing, but I do like these. I guess a lot of them are holographic. Kind of like that. This little frame could be fun. This moth type thing. This gate reminds me of Garden District, New Orleans. Just these little things. This is very stiff. Goodness. I don't like bats. I have a phobia of bats. Blech. I like this little border, even though it's got bats on it. This could be cute for a card or something. And then this is kind of cute. Kind of cute. Yeah. This moon skull. This pumpkin's cute. That's kind of cute. And then that. So primarily bought this pack for these two, and I did not know that they had holographic on them, so I'm kind of like not super into that, but I do like them still. Okay, and then these are actually die cut stickers. So let's look at these real quick. What do they mean by die cut stickers? Oh, they are actually, the whole thing is a sticker. Interesting. Okay. Spider legs, that tree. I like that tree. I like this bat better because it's kind of just a drawing. Moth wings. I mean, I'm not scared of that picture of that. Let's just be clear. My phobia is not quite that bad. Some poison. This is kind of witchy and fun. This raven looks a little goofy, but maybe he just knows something that we don't. Bat droppings, yay. All natural. Beetle juice. And I like the pickled brains. I do like the pickled brains. Yeah, these hearts I like a lot. These are great. These I'll definitely use. And then the skulls are kind of cool. So I like the stickers a little bit better. Like I said, I did not know these were holographic, but $6. $6 for ephemera. More ephemera than I've bought in a long, long time. I'm not an ephemera person. Okay, so that covers everything that I purchased or acquired in September. That brings my total spending on my fountain pen and planner hobby for September to under $75. So somewhere between $70 and $75, including, like I said, that includes the ink flight box, which is over half of that. And if we're going to do a review of the things that got used up last month, these are the ink samples that I went through. Some of them may have been from last month, but I didn't record where that transition happened very well, so I'll just throw them in here. So it looks like about 6 samples. We have a Colorverse Loki Patera. We have Inkeberra Pale Violet. We have the Kuretake Meiji no Iro Shimbashi-Iro. This, I think I'm going to get a bottle of. Ganymede Colorverse, Massive Storm Colorverse. Wow, that's 3 Colorverses I used up. That's impressive. And then the other Kuretake Meiji no Iro Ebicha. Both of these inks, really pretty. So 6 samples out the door. No change in getting rid of any pens or any other stationery stuff. So just these 6 samples. All right, let's talk about the least controversial hit of the month, and that is my Narwhal original has a piston problem. It started, it's all messed up. It started out last month with this piece. The piston cap actually was on there properly, but it wasn't flush against this ring ever. And now the piston cap is just not on there at all. It is basically in multiple pieces. I'm not really sure how this happened. I did look online and it seems like other people have had this problem. So it's not just me. But I'm going to try to fix it by taking it all the way apart, all the piston pieces completely separate, put it back together. If I am successful at all, I will record it because I don't think there is a video out there, at least not. I didn't look for a very long time, about that particular repair. And if that doesn't work, then I have to decide if I want to send it back and potentially pay to have it fixed or just let it go. It wasn't a very expensive pen in the grand scheme of the pens that I own. It wasn't $10 or anything either. So that kind of sucks. I just re-inked it only for the second time and I was really enjoying the ink that was in there. I just sort of bonded with this pen and then this happened. So that is a pit. The second hit of the month is hurricanes. Don't like hurricanes. I especially don't like the hurricanes this year. Hurricanes are truly devastating, and the impact of the storms on so many communities is heartbreaking. I personally lost a business to a hurricane many years ago, and here's some pictures of the aftermath. So my heart goes out to anyone affected by these recent storms. I want to take a moment to specifically mention Origami Inc. in Asheville, North Carolina. They are lovely people that had a physical location, as you can see, beautiful store in Asheville. And as it says on their site, the physical store was completely destroyed. And I lived it, and it's terrible. And this is what they were left with. It's terrible. It's terrible. And I know there are other people that are affected out there, but I do want to mention them. I've never been to the store, but I've heard wonderful things about the people there and the store itself, and really seems to be a well-respected and beloved location in the community. So they have a couple ways to support them. There is a GoFundMe in order to rebuild. I'll put the link to that in the show notes. And it looks like Retro 51 is doing a special pen that they're going to donate some of the proceeds for. And it's cute. It's a cute pen. If you're able to donate, if not to Origami Inc., there are other businesses and people that are affected. Anything that you can contribute would help. And even if you can't help right now, keep them in mind down the road. Because after the initial outpouring of support, you kind of get left feeling sort of high and dry after a few months. So it looks like they're planning on reopening their site. Keep them in mind once they get reopened. Maybe make a pen purchase there down the road. And if you can't contribute financially, keep them in your thoughts. Maybe spread the word if other people can help. Anyway, I don't like hurricanes. That's definitely the worst hit of this month. The last hit or thing I didn't like that I want to talk about is related to the fountain pen world drama that started primarily in September, but is still going on now. And this is my second time filming this. The first time I filmed it ended up being very, very long, like its own video long. And I think I was rambling around so much that I kind of lost track of the point. So I wanted to refilm it to just the point I'm trying to make. So my point is the fountain pen community is by and large a group of really diverse and wonderful people. And fountain pens are my happy place. I work in tech and I am in Teams and Outlook and a multitude of systems all day long. And I need the analog and tactile experience of sitting down with a fountain pen and paper and just writing. My brain needs that to function. But I don't want companies with bigoted views towards significant, meaningful segments of the population in that happy space at all. So I may have supported these companies in the past, and I have reconciled with myself about the things that I have currently, but I won't be supporting these companies going forward because I am not at all comfortable with supporting misogyny or hatred, financially or otherwise. I can't accept the apologies that have been put out there because I feel like they're too little too late. I feel like they're trying to brush the situation under the rug. And most importantly, I feel like any claim of inclusivity that has been in these apology videos is not backed up by action. And so it's not a real apology to me. I don't have room for intolerance in my life, and I don't have room for intolerance on this channel because this is a space for everyone, even you ballpoint pen users out there. So that's the last of deep hits. And let's move on to something better, something happier, the things I loved. Let's move on to that. I don't want to talk about the stuff anymore. So positive stuff. Let's talk about the hits. The hits of September. September was my birthday month. So part of what I got for myself for my birthday was this Magna Carta Mag 650, which I've done a review on and I showed in my currently inked last month. This pen is still working beautifully for me. I've put, I think, 3 more inks in it and it has worked perfectly with all 3, which even with some of my most reliable flex pens, I still run into issues occasionally with different inks. This one has not given me a problem with any ink I've put into it. So I've either gotten quite lucky with the inks that I've chosen, or it's just a really well-behaved pen. So I am really enjoying this pen still. I do not regret buying it. I cannot, if we're going to talk about budgets, I can't go ahead and buy another pen that's expensive for a little while. I really like this pen. Another hit this month was surprisingly, this Pilot Falcon and I have finally come to an agreement about our relationship. It's still not a pen that I love writing with on a day-to-day basis, but what I do really love this pen for is filling out forms and writing on bad copy paper. It works great for that. The Pilot ink that I have in it is Konpeki, so it's a blue and it's a dark enough blue that it's still business appropriate. And I love this pen for that. So I have repaired my relationship with this pen. This pen gets the Most Improved award for September. Another big hit in my fountain pen life this month is surprisingly this little clipboard. It's just a little regular clipboard that fits the size paper I use for my planner. So what I've been doing, because I use disc planners and I make all my own templates, is I've been pulling out the sheets that I'm working with primarily for that day. So the schedule for that day, maybe some work notes and notes YouTube video in here. And this is easier for me to deal with by my computer when I'm working on the computer. And it's not that I don't like my planner, because I definitely do. And I like all the pages being in there. But the planner being a dismount planner, it's this size, which is not too big. But in order to write in it, you have to have it open, or you have to do this. And a lot of the time I like having the pages pulled out anyway, because I don't like running into the rings with my hand. So the little clipboard, it's a great way to keep the pages that I'm mostly working on right now in one place and secure and not rumpled up or anything. On that same note, one of the other hits for this month was that I expanded my daily tracking to include, it used to go from, I think, 7 to 10, but I expanded it to go from 5 in the morning until 3 in the morning, because I usually get up at 5:45 in the morning, and I usually don't go to bed till around 2. Okay, that sounds terrible. It sounds like I sleep 3 hours a night, which is sometimes true. And then the other hit is I made a template for YouTube videos. I've been going back and forth for months now trying to find a template to use in my planner that I like, that I can plan out YouTube videos on. And I've gone through about 4 iterations now. Some of them were specific to the type of video. Some of them were more general, but now that I have my editing workflow down, I have landed on this being the template for a YouTube video. And these are the stages that I do when I make a video. File names to make the actual files easier to find, some issues we're filming, and I can go through. And then it's got a good section on the back for any sort of planning that I'm doing. So I really like this template. That's been a hit. And one last hit, I made it a point this month to get back into doing morning pages. And so I've been doing those. 1 page every morning. And I have this notebook that I had laying around. I'm forcing myself to use this, even though the paper is a little fussy and not really great with fountain pens, because I'm not planning on reading any of this stuff after it's done. That's how morning pages are supposed to go. And so it doesn't really matter to me if it fuzzes or bleeds through. And I have about 4 of these notebooks I want to get through. So tempting to get a fancy notebook for this, but it really is just kind of trash writing. It's just to empty out your brain in the morning. That's the whole point of it. So, but I like doing this. It's been beneficial to me to be able to have the morning pages. Sometimes not always in the morning, but they always eventually get done. So those are the hits. And let's hit my little fly trap. It's so cute. Hopefully I can keep him alive. He needs water. Let's take some time to review my September inked pens. This is the exact way I had it laid out at the end of the video last month. I had it laid out in more or less the order that I thought I would enjoy them. My predictions basically of how I thought I would feel about this month. And I did a fairly decent job of it. I'm going to rearrange based on how I actually felt about the inks last month. So let me do that. Okay, this is where I ended up, going from my very favorite to my very least favorite. So in all of these cases, I'm talking about the ink in the pen. For instance, this ink might be perfectly fine, but this combination was terrible. And in some cases, the pen or the ink will influence how I feel about it one way or another. So let's start at the beginning. This Pannonia by Horfulu Stormcloud, this gray, I like so much that I'm going to try to keep it in this pen. The one that I use primarily for a majority of my work in my planner. I am going to make this a permanently inked pen with this ink. And that doesn't mean I'll stop trying gray inks, because I have a problem, a gray ink problem, but the shading on this and everything is just gorgeous. Amazing shading. The price is good. The actual value of the ink, darkness-wise, is perfect. It's not too dark, so it still reads gray, and it's not so light that it's hard to read. This is A+. And Pannonia inks in general, both of the ones that I've tried, I've loved. So I'm leaning towards potentially ordering a bunch of Pannonia just to try some other colors. Really, really good. Colorverse, Massive Storm in another flex pen. The shading on this is also beautiful, really nice. This is probably my favorite Colorverse ink. I do also like Dokdu quite a bit, but I haven't used that one in a while. And this is just a beautiful green leaning, darker blue-green that still has color. This is gorgeous. I love this ink. This in my TWSBI, this combination, I wasn't really feeling my TWSBI last month. The ink that was in there wasn't really, it was a sheener and it looked fine. But this is so pretty and it writes so smooth. It just flows out of that TWSBI. It makes this broad nib just write beautifully. And again, this is one of the discontinued inks. So it's quite sad because it's a really, really pretty pink. Love it in this pen. This is great. Really happy with this. I love this pen. I really like the tone of this ink and I like how it writes. The shading is nice and the duochrome type effect of the color is beautiful too. This is really a nice combination. I'm pretty sure I've talked about this before, but I wouldn't hesitate to use this combination again. And I do like this ink a lot. Though the Pannonia Orgona ink that is a very similar color, this ink is beautiful. And it performs just a little bit better than the Sailor Manio, but they're both really gorgeous inks, in my opinion. The Magna Carta, loved writing with this pen again last month. Didn't have any issues with this ink at all. It's sort of a purple gray. Really like the color. It's just maybe not quite as exciting as these others, but this entire row of ink, I just loved the pen and I love the ink. And there's nothing I can say bad about any of these. There is some shading in here. I'm excited to try this in a broad instead of a flex. Same with this. And honestly, same with that too. So it's going to be living in that pen. So, all right. So all of these is a 10 out of 10. This is a 9. This is a 9. This is a 9. That's a 9. So really high scores here. These were all nice as well. This, the black Kaweco Sport nib that I have, it's a double broad. Feels a little scratchy. This nib could probably use a little bit of tuning, and that's the only thing that kept me from reaching for it more. I really like Moon River by Troublemaker. It's a very pretty ink, kind of a pinkish gray again. So that is got high marks, and I have a bottle of this. So I have complained about this ink, I think, for 2 months because it sheens too much, but I really liked how the Narwhal double broad nib handled this ink. And I loved using this for titling. It was too much sheening for regular everyday handwriting or journaling, which is what kept it from being higher, but it still just flowed. It was fun to write with. So maybe the resulting color, like what ended up dried on the page, wasn't my favorite because the sheen is so prominent, but the writing experience itself was just lovely and smooth. It kind of got bumped up here because it was just very pleasant to write with. This Pilot Falcon is another one that I've complained about a lot. I finally figured out that A, I like color in this pen as opposed to a dark ink. B, I like that color to be something that's still business or official document appropriate, because C, this pen is perfect for cheap paper and for filling out forms. I had to fill out a packet of new patient forms for my son. It was 12 pages, and I loved writing with this pen. On all of those pages, they had the smaller lines, so you had to write a little bit small, but the nib still had character. So I think I just need to treat this pen as my official document type pen and keep doing a color in here. So this one, I think, moved up a good bit. This pen is a Wankai, and it had Magnolia Mirage in it. And honestly, the only disappointment I had in this ink is that It's just so much prettier in a flex pen. It's amazing in a flex pen. But I did reach for it a good bit, and the color is still pretty. So this, I think it might have moved up a little bit too. I know this one, this Hongdian N23, moved down. I love this pen. I love writing with this pen. And I like the shading of this ink, and I like the tone of the ink too, but it just, I don't know. I didn't reach for it. And when I did reach for it, I liked writing with it, but the writing in the end, I just didn't get excited about it. It was pretty good, but not great. So this is a 9. This is probably like maybe an 8, maybe a 7. This was maybe a 7. This might have been like a 6.5. I don't know. It didn't do much. It performed beautifully though, so there's nothing wrong with this ink. This is a beautiful ink. I'm still writing with it. It's just the combination of the two. While you can really see the shimmer and the shading and the sheening that happens in this ink in this pen is not my favorite to write with for a couple reasons. The Lamy grip, it doesn't bother me unless I write for a significant length of time. And the 1.5 millimeter stub is just big enough to be too big for me to comfortably journal with, at least in the paper that I do journal with. So this is more of a pen problem. So the combination of the ink and the pen knocked this down a little bit, but this ink is gorgeous. It just does a lot of really neat things. My Narwhal with the Regalia Cross Flex nib, this is a very significant flexor. It goes much wider than is even showing on here. It is also extremely fussy about ink because the tines of this nib spread so wide that the surface tension of the ink that's in it has to be just right. And you have to write at just the right speed or you will get railroading. And this ink does not have the right surface tension to play nicely with the Narwhal, but it doesn't consistently always every single word railroad. It would railroad, I don't know, maybe twice on this. And the color is beautiful in that pen. So that's what keeps this ink from being much lower, is that even though it didn't perform really super well in this pen, the color was really pretty and it wasn't bad enough for me to really knock it down lower. I kind of got bored of this ink. This is a Kaweco All Sport Double Broad. It's got Octopus Fluids Dragon in it. That color's been in there for a while and it's pretty similar to this one. And I don't know, I think I'm just getting tired of it. I didn't reach for it much. It writes fine in this pen and it is a very pretty color. I think I just am ready to put something else in here. I was concerned about this Birmingham Pen Company Emerald Fusion ink because this sample got gummy. It's almost too much sheening, but I ended up liking it a decent amount because the sheening that happens in these letters is a lighter green against the ink and it sort of matches. So even though it's a pretty heavy sheener, it's not all sheen like this Quantum Teal is. I really like writing with this pen. This ink color, I'm not maybe the biggest fan of greens. And when I do like greens, I like them to be more bluer greens or forest greens, even though this is kind of low on the list, or lime bright green. This is a medium grass green. So it's kind of right in the middle. This Pilot Parallel, I've been making a point to use every day for titling, both of these actually. I love this ink. Honestly, this could probably be higher, except this is a 6 millimeter Pilot Parallel. This is the size of letters it makes. It's just not super practical for anything that's not a card or something really large. And in fact, next month when I do my currently inked, I'm going to take both of these out and I'll just do them as an add-on on the end if I change the color out. They don't need to be in here every single month because it's going to take a while to go through the ink in these. This ink itself is gorgeous. This is only down a little bit because of the pen. I think we were at 6.5 here. I'd say all of these are 6s. They're all pretty inks. They all work well. They're just not my favorite. It's probably a 6.2. This is the Birmingham Pen Company Firebox. This brownish red though, this is just not maybe my favorite color, but it does have very nice shading in it and it performed well. It's just kind of a reddish brown. And I think I could say the same thing about the Tiger Lily, this sort of orangish yellow. Again, not my favorite color. This titanium flex nib requires more pressure to flex, so it's not as fun to write with as some of these other flex nibs that I have. These, I would maybe say 5.5 for both of these. Nothing really inherently wrong, just didn't really grab me. They are very fall type colors though. This doesn't have a swatch because this was a fill, Birmingham Pen Company Railroad Spike. It's a nice performing ink, but it doesn't shade and it's basically black, but it does perform well. So that's why it's as high as it is. This is another one of my Wankais. This has had this green in it for several months now. It's a fine green. I'm pretty tired of seeing it though, and it feels a little dry. It's a little dry. These are probably 5s. This one moved up because, like I mentioned last month, if I go over the words twice, it actually does a pretty darker bit on the side. Like this here, you can see how if you go over it and you just concentrate a little bit, it does a nice little shading. It kind of made it jump up a little bit in how much I like it. Would I ever buy a bottle? No. Would I ever ink it again? No, I ran out of it anyway. I used it all. Do I like it better than I liked it last month? Yes. And like I said, I've been trying to use it every day to title. So it bumped up a little bit, but it's still like a 5. And then the Problem Children at the end here. This, I am way done with this color. This purple, even though, like I said, I flossed the tines, I spread the tines a little bit to increase the ink flow, and the ink is flowing better. It's still a washed out purple. It doesn't read like shading to me. It reads like unsaturated, if that's a good way to explain it. It doesn't go from light to dark. It's washed out. So this sample got used up when I filled this pen, and I do want to try some other Tom Studio ink. This Van Diemen's Her, it's a pink, but it's an odd pink because it's almost red. There's no shading in it at all. When I first filled the pen with this, I didn't use it very much, and I have used it more this month, but in that amount of time, the ink has gone quite gummy. And when I say that it's gone gummy, it hasn't evaporated and the color is the same. But when I wrote with it, and I wish I would have got a video of it, but it's gone now. So when I wrote with it, if I wrote a letter and I lifted my pen, it was like mozzarella cheese. There was a string of ink that went from the nib of my pen to the paper. And sometimes it would even slop over onto the next word. Now, having a pen filled with ink for several months can sometimes cause weird stuff like that to happen. I know Diamine Red Dragon, which is one of my favorite reds, if it is sitting too long, you'll see crystals forming on the nib of your fountain pen. You can't keep ink in pens for an extended period of time and not expect the color to change or the ink properties to change, because there's a lot more airflow that's happening in a pen than there is while the ink is in the bottle. But usually, generally, after a couple months, we're not at the gummy mozzarella cheese stage. I haven't seen that before. So this ink, I don't know, I would use it on a pen that you use a lot more if you really like this kind of color, but this color doesn't really do much for me and the ink acts crazy. So not really a huge fan of that. This, I've talked about it. This is the last time I'll be talking about it because that ink is gone. So you won't need to listen to me complain about it anymore, but I don't like this ink. I don't like the tone of the brown. I don't like how dark this is. I do want to try it in a flex pen to see if maybe we can get some of these color variations in the flex, because I think that would be a lot of fun. And if it would read a little bit darker with a wetter pen, this is pretty low. And this one here just behaved terribly. The pen was just gushing ink out, indicating that there was some sort of problem with the seal somewhere. And I took it apart, put it back together, refilled it with the same ink. Same thing happened. I took it apart, put it back together, refilled it with the same ink. It started behaving. It did not gush ink everywhere again, but there was very little ink left to put in it at that point. So I ran out of it fairly quickly. And then I put a different ink in it afterwards, and it did not have the problem of ink gushing all over the place. So and it's also quite dark in this flex. This ink in this pen is a no. Now, is it the ink's fault? I'm not really sure. I do want to try this ink in a architect or abroad this upcoming month. So that covers all of my inks for September. And let me just pull out the pens right now that are ready to be re-inked, just to give you kind of an idea of how many we'll be talking about in October. So the pens that are empty. Done, but refilled, and this pen is going to come out of the currently inked lineup altogether because it's going to go into my permanently inked pen. So I'm going to set this to the side. Done, still hanging in there, done and done. So there was 24 pens that I had inked, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pens. It is possible that by the time I do my October currently inked, that this pen will be done. And when I say possible, I'm going to say almost definitely this will be done. This one's getting close too, so it's possible that'll be getting done. So it's going to be somewhere between 14 and 16 pens. I'm going to be taking these two out of the talk about every month. I'm going to just put them to the side, and I'll mention them as sort of like a special guest at the end if they end up getting new ink. So basically there's just four left. And this one I expect will take a while to use up. So that's how things went in September. I had a lot of really great inks. And if you like grays at all, I strongly recommend checking out that Pannonia ink. It's beautiful. So there you have it, Addie's fountain pen life from September. There were definitely some highs and some lows. And hopefully future installments of this re-inking series will lean more towards spilling ink accidentally and less towards drama or natural disasters. Anyway, thanks for sticking around, and I hope to see you again. Bye. My foot's asleep. My foot's really asleep.